Joining me now to break the matchups down, talk a little bit more about these games and these teams, Russell Baxter. You can follow him on Twitter at BaxFootballGuru. You've seen him on NFL Network's Good Morning Football. He also writes for a multitude of platforms, including NFL Spin Zone. Russell, how you doing today?
I'm good, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing well. So I want to start out with this point, and that is, I mentioned this at the top of the show. I want to get your thoughts on it. You know, to me, the four teams that are here, the beauty of football is that it's the ultimate team sport. And everyone's so focused on, oh, well, it's Case Keenum and it's Nick Foles and it's Blake Bortles. But to me, the beauty of football is that look at these teams, how well they were built and how much these franchises invested in these teams, not just on the offensive and defensive lines, but the teams as a whole.
Yeah, I'm not going to call anybody out, but there was a certain radio personality yesterday went on a show and basically instructed the country that you should be rooting for the New England Patriots, because who wants to wake up Monday morning and have the Jacksonville Jaguars versus Nick Foles? Okay? That mentality, to me, is someone, I'm sorry, you don't understand the game, that this will always be a team game, okay? We're not watching the Final Four at Wimbledon, okay? We're watching four teams that have worked very hard, three of them who won 13 games this year. Jacksonville's a little bit of the outlier. They only won 10, but all division winners, and all overcoming adversity in their own ways. New England with the bad defensive start, the injuries at quarterbacks, to the Eagles, obviously, and to the Vikings. Remember, it was Sam Bradford who was the Week 1 starter when they beat the Saints. Okay? And then Jacksonville, just not so much adversity, but overcoming a losing culture for many, many years. And Tom Coughlin and Doug Marrone get a big hand in that. Okay, the bottom line is these four teams are here, and everybody gets here in a different way. And only think about this: the only team back from the playoffs a year ago are the Patriots. The Eagles were 7-9, the Vikings were 8-8, the Jaguars were 3-13. I guess some people want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to complain and moan that the same old teams are in it over and over again. And yet, when you get some different teams, they want to complain and moan and moan and moan. And we know those kind of people. They complain and moan and moan and moan. They're the kind of people who would win $50 million in Powerball and complain about the taxes.
Or they complain the money bag's too heavy.
Yeah, take it. I mean, it's complaint.
Yep.
I mean, are you telling me that if Jacksonville wins on Sunday, that people are going to turn off their TVs on Super Bowl Sunday? You're either very pompous or naive. I can't figure out which one it is.
So let's break down some of these games, Russell. Let's first start with the AFC game because it's the first game on Sunday time-wise. I know everyone keeps bringing up the fact it's Jacksonville's front versus Tom Brady and all the hype about Brady's hand. But to me, here's the thing that stood out to me, and that is the Jaguars allowed 42 points versus the Steelers, 44 at the 49ers, 37 versus Titans in Week 2, and then they allowed 27 in two other games, and they lost both those games to Blaine Gabbert and the Jared Goff. It's not like, to me, the Jaguars' defense is totally untouchable, and I look at the Patriots and I say, if other teams can do that to the Jacksonville, why can't the Patriots?
Well, I think there's a perception, Josh, that the Jaguars have a great defense. And I'm stealing a little from my very good friend Tom Jackson, who always insisted to me, and I agree with him, you're not a great defense unless you can stop the run. And that is the fatal flaw with the Jacksonville Jaguars, is they are not a great run defense. Okay? I'm going to throw in the two playoff games over Buffalo and Pittsburgh, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They have 59 sacks. They have 37 takeaways. They have returned 8 of those 37 takeaways for touchdowns. And in case you think that's just like a lot of bad quarterback play and pick sixes, only 2 of those are interceptions, Josh. They've scooped up 6 fumbles and run them back for touchdowns. That'll tell you something about their team speed, their aggressiveness, and their talent. But They can be had on the ground. And that's why teams are able to put up some points against them, because their aggressiveness sometimes works against them. They're still a very, very young team, okay? They've gone from 3 wins to 12 overall wins in 1 year. They're still learning how to win. But I don't think this is a great defense. Last week we saw Tom Brady attempt 53 passes and wasn't sacked, okay? I'm not saying he's not going to get sacked here, but I think the running game of the New England Patriots, if Tom Brady can drop back 53 times, the Patriots a week later can run it 40 or 45 times, and that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Also, you mentioned the youth of Jacksonville. People keep bringing up, well, look what the Ravens and Giants did. That Ravens team played the Patriots multiple times in the playoffs. They knew what they were getting. They were a veteran defensive group. And then when the Giants beat them in the Super Bowl, those teams also had 2 weeks to prepare, and those were a veteran bunch as well. So like you said, Jacksonville is still a young team, and sometimes when you have a young team and they get over anxious and they over pursue, they can give up big plays.
There's no question about it. I think that happened last week against Pittsburgh. They got up big. They had their own. Listen, they're not a perfect team. They're a flawed team. So you knew Pittsburgh was going to, like a basketball team, you knew Pittsburgh was going to make a run or two. But the bottom line is they've gotten steady play from Blake Bortles. They have not turned over the football in 2 playoff games, not against Buffalo. Bortles has been very, very resourceful. I know he hasn't put up electrifying passing numbers, but the one thing he has done is he has realized when teams are dropping back in coverage, he's run when he's had to run. 88 yards rushing against the Bills, 35 yards rushing last week against the Steelers. He picks up a lot of third downs with his legs. So give credit where credit's due. For a guy who was much maligned, and people still want to, say Bortles like it's a 4-letter word, he's done what he's had to do. So every team is constructed differently. Not every team is going to be the Patriots. Not every team is going to be the Broncos from a couple of years ago. To me, this is not – I know a lot of people are talking about comparisons to the Broncos or the Seahawks from 2013. I don't think this is that dominant defense. The one thing I will say about Jacksonville defense is you rarely hear a defense considered explosive. That's what I think they are. They're an explosive defense who can create turnovers, who can make big plays, who can bail out their offense and so on. But this is a tall order for an experienced team to go into Foxborough and win a playoff game, much less a team. But I will say this, game plan-wise, Tom Coughlin plays a very, very big part in this. They had the pass rush. We saw what Coughlin did. We talk about coaches kind of knowing each other. For whatever reason, not only has Tom Coughlin beaten Bill Belichick as a head coach in 2 Super Bowls, the year they won the 2nd Super Bowl, Josh, they went up to Foxborough and ended the Patriots' long home winning streak.
Yep.
If you remember 2011, the Giants were 9-7. They won the division. They gave up more points than they scored. They got swept by the Redskins that year. They beat the Patriots. The Patriots didn't lose another game. I think they reeled off 8 or 9 or 10 wins in a row. And then they lost to the Giants again. So sometimes it is matchups and knowing what you can do and so on. And Tom Coughlin will be a major factor in this.
We know what the Patriots can do. So isn't that why it's even more important for Jacksonville to run the ball? Because when you can play keep away from Tom Brady and the Patriots, you give them less opportunities to put up points on the board, right?
No doubt about it. And that's why I think what I'm expecting to see is the Patriots to play keep away with the Jaguars and shorten the game too much. So that will also alleviate what's going on with Tom Brady. Let's not make any mistake about it. He apparently cut his hand on a teammate's helmet the other day, required stitches. It seems like he's throwing the ball in practice. I'm going by reports of what I'm reading. He's not having any trouble throwing the ball. But I would imagine for any of us who have even had a paper cut, Josh, that a cut on your hand is going to be a little sore after a couple of days. From what I understand, they were limiting his experience in the shotgun, okay? So he wouldn't have to take that hard snap. And maybe you see a little more of that tomorrow. So I don't know what's going to happen. What I do know is going to happen is The Patriots just bring a lot of experience here. They have a shot at going to a 10th Super Bowl as a franchise, already topping their record. It would be the 8th under with Brady and Belichick. It's going to be a tall order for them, for the Jacksonville Jaguars to go over in there and win. And I expect a totally different game than we saw from either team last week.
Let's flip it over to the Vikings and Eagles. And I mentioned earlier, if I'm Eagles and I'm the Eagles fans, history, you don't learn from it, you tend to repeat it. I look back to the 2002 Buccaneers. Them and this year's Vikings have some similarities. Both were number one in the league in points allowed. They were both number one in the league in total yards allowed. Case Keenum on his 4th NFL team, Brad Johnson on his 3rd NFL team. And the funny thing about the Vikings is their offense was actually more productive this year than the Falcons, who the Eagles just beat. I think that it's this idea that the Eagles, they're at home. Listen, you want to be at home. It's a great home field environment, but the Eagles cannot overlook the fact that just because Case Keenum is the quarterback doesn't mean the Vikings don't have what it takes to beat them.
I don't think there's any question about it. What a weird road that we've come to with Minnesota and Philadelphia in this game. Let's go back just a year ago. Okay? In fact, let's go back just a month before last season began. And I'm going to be saying stuff that you already know. Teddy Bridgewater goes down in practice. The Vikings turn to the Eagles to get Sam Bradford.
Yep.
The Eagles start off 3-0 with Carson Wentz, wound up missing the playoffs. The Vikings start out 5-0 last year. Came into Philadelphia, lost 21-10, never recovered, went 8-8. So you got two teams here who got off to good starts last season and both missed the playoffs. Now you fast forward to this year, and you've got Sam Bradford, the starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings in Week 1. He goes down, comes back a few times. Now it's Case Keenum. Carson Wentz was the starter, MVP type season. Now Nick Foles is the starter. Nick Foles and Case Keenum, not long ago, teammates with the Los Angeles Rams, or the St. Louis Rams, or the Cleveland Rams, who also made the playoffs this year with a second-year quarterback. So, I mean, you can do the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon thing anytime you want to do it here, but it's fascinating to me to see how these two teams have gotten here. And to me, the underlying factor, and remember, these are top two defenses, but they are 1-2 in the league, Josh, against the run. So we know Philadelphia has that three-headed monster. I give the Vikings an awful lot of credit for what they've done with the running game this year. Here's one for if you go out and have a Diet Coke tonight. Last year, 7 players in the league outrushed the Minnesota Vikings. They had 1,205 yards on the ground as a team. This year, they're 7th in the league in rushing. That's a hell of a turnaround.
And Russell, isn't part of that because the Vikings, they went out and they invested in their offensive line. They signed Reef and Remmers. They drafted Eflin. The Vikings said, we have an issue on our offensive line and we're going to actually invest in it.
Absolutely. Rick Spielman, went out and got new tackles, had to revamp the middle. And let's go back to Week 4, Josh. Okay? Before there was an Alvin Kamara sighting, and he was the front runner. Who was everybody talked about as far as the best rookie running back in the league?
Dalvin Cook.
Dalvin Cook goes down in Week 4. It's almost as if people have forgotten that the Vikings are still running the ball effectively with Latavius Murray and Jerick McKinnon. So, again, I give them a lot of credit. They wound up, I'm one of those people that looks at rushing attempts. And when I say rushing attempts, so I'm clear, that's handoffs, that's quarterback sneaks, that's kneel downs. There were 2 teams in the league this year that totaled over 500 yards, 500 rushing plays. They were the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Minnesota Vikings.
I know it's not a sexy question, but to me, I think the thing with the Eagles in this game is actually their special teams, because when they beat the Giants, they had all those big special teams plays, the block field goal, the block extra point, the block punt. And then the game last week, Jake Elliott, what happens? Well, he misses an extra point. He kicks the ball out of bounds, but then he comes back and gets all those other field goals and helps them win. To me, if the Eagles' special teams is all lined up and in running order, it makes them so much harder to beat because it takes pressure off of the offense and their defense.
Oh, no doubt about it. And those are the things you have to look at in these games, okay? Field position. They're always important, and they get accentuated in the playoffs, okay, where a blocked punt or a blocked field goal can mean a momentum swing, a huge momentum swing. And you're right. It was they got bailed out by the kicking game, although I wouldn't say it was a great day for the special teams for the Eagles as well, okay? That game against the Giants so stands out to me that you get 3 different block kicks in a game. So, yeah, that's going to be very, very important, especially with two teams who play the kind of defense that they do. If you're looking for listen, maybe forget the game. Why don't we just get Fletcher Cox and Linval Joseph to meet at 50-yard line and do a sumo wrestling match or something? So,
I think some people would pay for that for a halftime show. That's for sure.
Would be fun.
So, real quick, who are you going with in each game and why?
Well, I'm going to go with New England. I could see Jacksonville moving the football, but I'm not sure how much they get into the end zone. I'm a little concerned about Fournette with the ankle injury. He didn't look as effective in the second half against Pittsburgh after he turned his ankle, and I don't know. That's always it's not like he won't play, but is he the same kind of back that he was throughout the year? I'm not going to make many people happy, but I'm kind of leaning a late field goal for the Vikings against the Eagles. And I know I just feel more convinced that the Vikings, from season start to season end, Josh, have been the more consistent and steady football team, even in the games they lost. Early in the season, they lost to Pittsburgh. And that was Case Keenum finding out he was going to be the starter just before the start of the game.
Right.
They dropped a tough game to Detroit. The last time they lost was in Carolina, which was a third straight road game for them. I don't like the way the Eagles have been. The Eagles have been ugly winning, but I think they need to be a little prettier on Sunday. And listen, nothing's going to surprise me, even if Jacksonville wins, if Philadelphia wins. I'm just going to bet the over on Dog Mask at the link.
Russell, one more question before I let you go. And I always appreciate the time Russell Baxter joining us on the Boardwalk Honda hotline here on 97.3 ESPN. This situation and with the Steelers, Tomlin, I think people overlook how productive and how good and how much winning he has done in Pittsburgh. People are already starting these rumors about, is there a timetable? Is he on the hot seat? Is he in trouble? And to me, I don't think that's fair, because this guy, unlike a lot of other franchises, unlike a lot of other coaches, he's consistently winning. He's consistently getting your team to the playoffs. You're not going to win and be the best team every year. Yeah, he's only 8-7 in the playoffs, but he has more wins in his first 11 years than Bill Cowher did.
Yeah, there is I think there's an essence of being spoiled when it comes to, people who root for the Steelers and so on. Quick trivia question. Can you name the last time Mike Tomlin had a losing season, Josh?
I don't think he has, right?
Yes, that's called a trick trivia question. He's had Nate in there, but they've been to the playoffs 8 times. I think what Mike Tomlin has to say, and I'm not here to give him any advice, okay, because my coaching record, I'm undefeated. I've never won and I've never lost, okay? I go back to Mike Tomlin's rookie year in 2007. He inherited a veteran team. And listen, these are his words from, different documentaries and different things he's done. He inherited a veteran team. He worked them hard during the summer. They faded down the stretch. In fact, that year they lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars twice at Pittsburgh. ironically enough, 10 years later. A year later, they won the Super Bowl because he adjusted his coaching style to what he knew and so on. I think maybe it's time 10 years later for Mike Tomlin to adjust his coaching style. He's dealing with some standout personalities. I don't know what the proper word to use is. There's obviously a little issue there with a couple of the players, the latest Le'Veon Bell story. There was obviously some sort of communication gap between Ben Roethlisberger and Todd Haley. But teams that are good don't panic and make impulsive changes, okay? I have said that for the last couple of years. When you consider knee-jerk decisions, always remember the word jerk is involved, okay? The Steelers are zoning in. Mike Tomlin's going to be back next year, which means the Pittsburgh Steelers will have had 3 different head coaches in 50 years next year. Think about that. And it's a franchise still run by the Rooneys, who remember the days of 30s and the 40s and 50s and 60s. I know people aren't really honing in on that, but they did do what the Cleveland Browns did, constantly changing coaches, constantly changing quarterbacks, constantly, getting rid of a Johnny Unitas, okay? Go back and do your history and so on. They made an about face when they hired Chuck Noll, and they changed their philosophy to be much more consistent. And that's, it's no coincidence that teams like the Patriots, the Steelers, the Packers, the Giants, for the most part, even though they've got something new here, which tells you how poorly things were going with Ben McAdoo, continuity is huge. If you're going to change your coaches every 2 or 3 years, or you're going to have a hissy, okay, because you lost a game at home that you think you weren't supposed to lose, and make impulsive changes, you're going to set your program back. So the Steelers, to me, are looking to fix the problem rather than renovate the whole house.
He is Russell Baxter. Follow him on Twitter at BaxFootballGuru for all of your NFL factoids heading into the games. Russell, always appreciate the time on the air, and enjoy the games tomorrow.
You got it.